Coming up on Market to Market. After years of delays, extensions, and partisan gridlock, the Farm Bill is signed into law. The Obama administration releases a key environmental report on the Keystone XL pipeline. And facing yet another year of severe drought, California ranchers begin liquidating their herds. Those stories and market analysis with Don Rose, next.
This is the Friday, February 7th edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. For the second consecutive month, a surprisingly weak jobs report raised concerns this week that the U.S. economy appears to be slowing. The Labor Department reported Friday that U.S. employers added just 113,000 positions to their payrolls in January. That's more than 40% below the 2013 average monthly gain of 194,000. But solid job creation in some sectors boosted prospects for future expansion. Mining and drilling companies, construction firms, and manufacturers added a total of 76,000 new workers last month, and that helped push America's unemployment rate down 0.1 of a point to a 5-year low of 6.6%. In the wake of a crippling government shutdown last fall, President Obama called on Congress to do its part in speeding the economic recovery by approving a budget, reforming immigration policy, and passing a long overdue farm bill. Congress did reach a deal on the budget, but immigration reform is stalled in the Republican-controlled House, and the president got his wish on the third directive Tuesday when Congress finally approved the farm bill.
That stands up for our ranchers.
After years of setbacks, the Farm Bill, a measure authorizing nearly $100 billion in annual federal spending, finally emerged from Congress. Debate stretched over 2 days as senators from both sides of the aisle argued for and against approval of the conference committee report. In the end, however, lawmakers praised the compromise.
This Farm Bill contains the greatest reforms to agricultural programs in decades. We have finally ended direct payment subsidies, which are given to farmers in good times and bad. Instead, we shift to a responsible risk management approach that only gives farmers assistance when they experience a loss.
The risk management policies in the bill recognize the regional differences in priorities of agriculture production throughout the country. The commodity and crop insurance titles of the conference report reflect how Congress can work effectively to support American agriculture and at the same time be responsible to taxpayers.
North Dakota Senator John Hoeven also praised the bill and stressed its importance to all Americans.
The farmers and ranchers we have in this country produce the highest quality, lowest cost food supply in the world.
One of the biggest shifts in policy was the demise of direct payments, which paid farmers regardless of prices or yields. Instead, lawmakers improved a more market-based crop insurance support program. Most of the $4.5 billion annual cost would kick in when a farmer has losses. One of the biggest opponents to the bill was the American meat industry. It wanted the removal of a mandate requiring packers to implement mandatory cool standards.
And it continues strong country of origin labeling so consumers know where their meat was born, raised, and processed, giving them the option to buy U.S.-made meat if they so choose.
The legislation was not without opposition in farm states. Republican Senator Charles Grassley, a farmer from Iowa, said too much of the bill was done behind closed doors. He also cited the removal of language that would have reworked subsidy eligibility and accurately defined who could be considered a farmer.
Frankly, when farmers that shouldn't be getting big payments from the farm program get them, subsidizing large farmers to get larger is, in my estimation, wrong.
Arizona Republican John McCain took issue with spending to improve the marketing of sheep in the maple syrup industry, catfish research, and even attacks on Christmas trees.
How are we supposed to restore the American people's confidence with this monstrosity? The only policy that gets bipartisan traction in Congress is Washington's desire to hand out taxpayer money like it's candy.
This conference report certainly isn't perfect. As with any legislation that is this important and far-reaching, it's impossible to fully satisfy everybody. But this is a reasonable compromise.
The deal also drew criticisms on where cuts were made to provide savings. Overall spending of the life of the bill is $956.4 billion, and nearly 80% of the funds will go to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. The program, formerly known as food stamps, currently helps 1 in 7 Americans. Nevertheless, one Southern lawmaker says the farm policy bore the brunt of the cuts.
But you're cutting $8 billion from the 20% of the program and the other $8 billion from the 80% of the program. And that's not balanced.
Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont said the nutrition spending cuts should not have been a question up for debate.
Feed children in America so they might actually learn when they're at school? Oh, we can't afford that. Come on. Feeding those hungry children is an investment in the future of this great nation.
In the end, very little drama occurred in the vote as the bill passed by a margin of nearly 2-1.
If not, on this vote, the yeas are 68, the nays are 32, and the conference report is agreed to.
President Obama signed the Farm Bill into law Friday in Michigan, where he also announced a new Made in America initiative designed to boost exports. But plans to import oil from Canada through the proposed Keystone XL pipeline continues to be a hot potato for the Obama administration. Canada is America's top foreign supplier of crude oil, so it's not surprising that President Obama's initial rejection of the controversial plan went over poorly with our neighbors to the north. Since the pipeline would cross a U.S. border, the State Department must approve its construction. And late last week, the agency reaffirmed that it has no major environmental objections to the project. Late last week, the State Department announced that it has no major environmental objections to the proposed Keystone XL oil pipeline from Canada. The latest review, the 5th released on the project since 2010, acknowledges that development of oil sands in Alberta would, in fact, create greenhouse gases. But the report makes it clear that other methods of transporting the oil, including railroads, trucks, and barges, would release more pollutants. Once completed, the Keystone pipeline would transport as much as 850,000 barrels of crude per day from oil fields in Canada and North Dakota to refineries in Texas. The State Department announcement has been sharply criticized by environmentalists who believe the Obama administration's position is in direct conflict with the president's promise to fight climate change.
The shift to a cleaner energy economy won't happen overnight, and it will require some tough choices along the way. But the debate is settled. Climate change is a fact. And when our children's children look us in the eye and ask if we did all we could to leave them a safer, more stable world with new sources of energy, I want us to be able to say, yes, we did.
The Keystone pipeline has been problematic for Obama, who continues to push green energy alternatives while also advocating an all-of-the-above approach to reduce America's dependence on foreign oil. But the administration must balance environmental concerns with economic benefits. Over 1,000 miles of new pipeline would need to be built in the United States. Proponents say the project would create thousands of construction jobs and help modernize the aging network of U.S. pipelines.
Every bit of gas and diesel fuel that we use in this area, or awful close to every bit of it, it comes up from the south in pipelines that are somewhere near as old as I am.
Farmers and ranchers in the 6 states the pipeline would cross are mixed in their assessment of risks and rewards.
TransCanada got the right to this property through eminent domain. I did not sign on to it free and willingly. If it contaminates an area, the impact it could have on that area could be big as far as jobs lost and people having to move and relocate and such.
We need the fuel. We need to get away from buying the fuel from overseas.
Obama has pledged not to approve the pipeline if it would mean increasing carbon pollution. While the State Department report seems to have cleared that obstacle, the agency opened a 30-day public comment period this week, and the White House is not expected to make a final decision regarding the pipeline before May or June. Further west in California, farmers and ranchers might be more receptive to a pipeline, especially if it contains water. Amidst the state's driest year on record, California is locked in yet another year of drought and bracing for unemployment to soar, sending farm workers to food lines in a place famous for agricultural abundance. In the Central Valley, a region known locally as America's Salad Bowl, 1/3 of the jobs are related to farming. But with mountain snowpack at just 12% of normal, farmers probably will not get the irrigation water they need, and ranchers are already liquidating their herds.
We should all be clear by now that this is not a coming crisis. This is not an evolving crisis. This is a current crisis.
Well known for its commitment to environmental issues, the nation's top agricultural state now sees the natural beauty it has long sought to protect showing an ugly side.
Make no mistake, this drought is a big wake-up call and a reminder that we do depend on natural systems. It's not all just going to the store and see what we can buy.
California finds itself amidst a historic and seemingly endless drought rooted in 2013, one of the driest years on record. During the height of what should now be the state's rainy season, a severe lack of precipitation has led several anxious communities to ration their water supplies. And many residents of the Northern California town of Willits have adopted rather inconvenient methods of coping with the problem.
Turn off the toilet. I didn't wash my hair for 2 weeks.
California's Department of Public Health says 17 rural areas, including Willits, a town of about 5,000 people that usually sees about 50 inches of rain per year, are dangerously low on water, and officials expect that number to grow. Traces of rain did fall in limited areas of the Golden State late this week and were predicted to last through the weekend. But the National Weather Service forecasts the California drought will persist or intensify for at least the next few months. California's $45 billion agriculture industry is responsible for nearly half of all fruits and vegetables grown in the United States. Filling the nation's grocery aisles takes a wealth of inputs, and some 80% of California's water supply is consumed by its farming sector. Should the dry conditions persist, some crops may not be planted this spring. The lack of water out west is creating more than a few headaches for producers and their wallets.
I'm thinking when I see dusty roads and no grass in January that we're in a lot of trouble.
Among the first to experience the economic bite of extreme drought were ranchers. While January is normally a slow month for cattle sales in California, perennial blue skies have given way to dying pastures. And the arid conditions have brought some cattlemen to the auction block. Unsuitable natural forage has forced producers to purchase expensive feed that packs only a fraction of the nutritional punch found in normally green pastures. Some livestock owners have chosen to simply keep the best and sell the rest.
Oh, this was not part of the plan, no. I've got some show heifers, some fancy heifers that I'm selling today that I normally would keep.
While some rural areas have the ability to tap underground wells for temporary relief from California's water shortage, residents of Willits have no such luxury. The small town's nearby reservoir is almost empty, with water levels at just 4 inches.
We would expect this to be full right now, and if it were, we'd be standing in maybe 2 feet of water.
Lawn watering and car washing are subject to mandatory restrictions in Willits, and local restaurants are using paper plates to cut back on dishwashing. Some establishments are even pouring drinking water by request only.
Everyone's very worried and a little panicked.
Officials are racing to develop 2 groundwater wells within city limits, but available water resources are polluted by naturally occurring arsenic and other minerals, so the city needs an expensive treatment facility to make it potable.
It scares us. As a homeowner, you worry about property values.
While California's Public Health Department is testing the water to help determine what kind of treatment is needed, nervous residents hold out hope for the saving grace of Mother Nature.
If I wanted to live with rocks around my house, I'd move to Arizona. I don't want that. I want our annual rainfall to come back.
Next, the market-to-market report.
Wheat prices rallied this week as the trade pondered drought on the southern plains and deteriorating winter crop conditions. For the week, March wheat gained 22 cents, while the nearby corn contract moved 10 cents higher. Big week over in the soybean pits as scorching temperatures in southern Brazil and strong demand powered a weekly gain of 49 cents. Nearby meal followed suit and settled $20 higher per ton. In the softs, cotton also rallied this week as the March contract improved by $1.60 per hundred. In the dairy market, February Class 3 milk pulled back slightly from last week's record highs, but still hovered near $23 per hundredweight. Over in livestock, the April live cattle contract lost 2 cents, nearby feeders declined by $1.60, and the April lean hog contract gained 2 cents. In the financials, the euro gained 14 basis points against the dollar. Crude oil advanced by $2.40 per barrel. COMEX gold improved by $23 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index gained nearly 10 points to settle at 630.55. Here now to lend us his insight on these and other trends is one of our regular market analysts, Don Rose. Don, welcome back.
Thank you, Mike.
We did have a big move up in the wheat markets this week. Talk to us a little bit about what happened there, and have we put the low in?
Well, you know, the wheat market was one that was poised for some kind of a bounce. We went down to, very much like a lot of these grains, we went down to big support zones, down around the 550, 560 on Chicago wheat. Funds heavily short. Really, the news was stale. And so what we did is we started to move higher. A lot of it comes back to the harsh weather that we've had so far, and I think that started to make some of the funds nervous. We moved through some technical areas, and we had a sharp technical bounce.
All right. Now, is the market really getting concerned with winter kill? Is that starting to play into the thoughts?
Well, we're really not going to know until we come out of dormancy how serious it was. But we have, on the backdrop, remember we did have the planted acres were down about 1 million from what we had anticipated earlier. So I think really where we're at is we're still in a supply bear market. The United States stocks are tight, you know, very similar to the soybeans. U.S. stocks are tight, but not the world's stocks. So I think all we did is we just really moved up to some levels of resistance. We're probably going to need new catalysts to move higher.
Do you think this would be a good time to make some sales, or do you hold off and wait to see if we get a catalyst?
Well, I think when you look at it right where we're at right now, we're technically, the charts are, still positive. We're overbought. You know, we could have another 25, maybe even 35 cents to the upside. So I think here you're a scale-in seller. But remember, on Monday we're going to have the monthly crop report. It's probably going to be a little bit positive. Exports probably up. And then we're going to have the Ag Forum the 21st of February. So that's the next two big news items that we have ahead of us.
And there's nothing in either of those two news items that the trade is very nervous about. As far as we know, there isn't any terrible news that could come from either of those.
No, I don't think so. But I think when you look at it, we've got a lot of world competition. India is trying to sell wheat in the world market. I mean, who would have thought? We have some political unrest with the biggest wheat buyer in the world, Egypt. So, you know, there's some question marks on the demand side and on the supply side. So I think it's a market that in order to move into a more positive situation, it's probably going to have to be weather dominated.
All right. Keep an eye on the skies.
That is right.
Now let's take a look over at the corn market. Also saw a little bit of a rally this week, 10 cents up in the nearby. Where's corn headed?
The corn market has been up 7 days in a row, and it's very similar to the wheat. We reached down at some low end of the charts. We were oversold. Funds were short about 160,000 contracts, and so we spent a lot of time short covering. And really what happened is the stocks and all positions report told us that our feed usage was more than we thought. So rather than having a 2 billion bushel carryover at one time, we thought we're now close to 1.6 billion. So very much similar to the wheat market. All we did is move up to some tough resistance. March corn, 445, 450. New crop corn, 460, 465. And so those are areas that we're going to need a catalyst, much like wheat, to power through those. And then we're going to have those same two reports coming up here that are going to give us a little bit of direction. But we're still in a supply bearish market. But again, it's weather, it's the tough transportation. We haven't been able to move stuff efficiently this winter. And so we've got a little bit of an artificially tight situation and overall very adequate supplies.
All right. Now, as we watch the old crop corn market, I believe believe we're at about 91% of the USDA's export forecast for the marketing year. Is that going to provide support over the summer as we hopefully continue to export?
Yeah, and that's a good point because our export pace has grown. And like you said, we're at 91% of our total export pace. You know, soybeans were 106%. So it's all about the exports have supported us on this rally. And, you know, to the upside, we've got competition when we move higher. We're not the cheapest corn in the world anymore. We were at one time. Ukraine is tough competition. We've got Argentina and Brazil. Their crops are going to be coming at us here soon. So I would say that there's still an abundance of world corn that's available.
All right. But still, probably better selling opportunities down the line.
Well, I think it depends on what you're really looking at because I think it's more of, you know, we've had a nice rally. We've got a push to some very tough resistance areas. In order to push past, you know, this 460, 65 on December corn, you're probably going to have some kind of a weather type of catalyst. The charts do look positive. We had a key reversal on corn January 10th, and since then we've been moving to the upside back up to this resistance.
Okay. Well, now let's take a look over at the beans, talk about a surprising move this week, 50 cents to the upside. What's driving that? Is it primarily South American weather?
Well, the real driver is the fact that our export pace is strong. You know, like we alluded to, we've sold 106% of our total export commitment. Previous years, we've seen China cancel some of their purchases or roll them forward. So far, they haven't done that. And so, you know, the trade is starting to get concerned that we've got our stocks-to-use ratio is historically low. We have to see China start to make a move on some of the beans that they purchased, cancel them. Otherwise, we're going to be in a precarious type situation. I think they probably do start to cancel. Those rumors, you know, are abundant all the time. South America soybeans in Paraguay at port to port are about $1 cheaper than we are. So there's a good incentive to switch at some point in time.
Okay. And so far, they're able to get them out of the ports in South America with the little harvest they've had done so far?
That may be the reason that China hasn't canceled so far, because I think they want to see, last year, remember, it was a real bottleneck. And so I think that's probably what we're waiting for. The port congestion looks much less than it was last year. It looks like it's going to be a very efficient movement this year. So yeah, we think that's probably, China does probably start to cancel maybe even next week or forward move some of their beans.
And then that would create big sell-off in the old crop bean market? Are we just riding on weather? Or, excuse me, on exports?
Yeah, I think it's just really an export-committed market because we have an abundance of world supplies. What we really have is excess canola stocks in Canada. We have excess rapeseed wheat in Europe. We have big supplies out of South America. So it's really only the U.S. that has a precariously tight situation. And, you know, we're probably going to rely on some imports this next year also.
All right. Well, let's take a look over at the livestock market. Fat cattle have been hot now for 2 weeks. This week seemed to settle down a little bit. We saw the cash trade pull back, a lot of scattered reports, kind of all in the mid-40s, 140s. Where do you see this trade headed? Was 2 weeks ago just a one-off when we were seeing 150 trade?
Well, what really happened in the cattle market is we just plain spooked the consumer. Since the first of the year, we spiked up in 1 month. We moved the box beef, the beef at the consumer level up 20%. It was just too much too fast. So I think what happened is the packer was making about $100 a head as the beef spiked up there. He paid, like you say, $150 for cash cattle in Nebraska, $147 in the Southern Plains. And since that time frame, we've seen the box beef retreat. It's retreated now. It's going down about as fast as it went up. It's going back down to the high level that we were last year. So I think it's still very much a positive market. It's a bull market, but I think it's one that we went up too fast. We lost some of our demand. Now we're starting to rebuild it. And so watch for the box beef to stabilize somewhere between probably 207, 211, and then we should have a resumption of the upside again.
All right, still historically high prices, very much so on the choice box beef side.
Yeah, the box beef is still historically tight, and on Friday we did have a positive technical move on cattle. So, you know, I think it's one that, you know, how much do we move to the upside to lose demand? When you're talking about beef down 6% for the year, we're still going to be positive all the way through the next year.
All right, now let's take a look at feeder cattle. We did see a little bit of a sell-off this year, primarily driven by the corn rally.
Yeah, the feeder cattle, we still have a positive situation, and that's going to continue for the next couple of years. I mean, we have, in the last cattle inventory report, we have 700,000 less feeders outside of the feedlots than we had a year ago, so the demand's going to stay. I think it's really a question mark. If the corn moves higher, feeders probably move lower, and vice versa. But overall, the feeder cattle probably caught in this 160 to 175 trading range, a big wide range. It's going to be probably tighter between around this 170 both sides. But, overall feeder cattle are positive, and they're probably going to stay positive.
All right. Now let's take a look over at the hog market. Nearby, not much of a change here in April. Hogs hovering around that $94 mark. Is there any strength left in that contract?
Well, the big thing that you have with the hog market is the upfront month. The cash mark is very much different than the back months. The April hogs probably have a $10 100-weight PED premium, virus premium in it. The summer months about $8. Seasonally, slaughter should start to go down, but the weights have accounted for the last several months about an extra 2 to 3% of the overall slaughter. So the weights are going to have to come down, and we're going to have to see the slaughter come down. We're going to have to see the PED virus really start to show up. That's the big debate that you have out here in the industry.
Now, does that mean as we look at the June, this midsummer contracts at that 105 level, time to make some sales, do you think?
Well, 107.47 is the old all-time high. Okay. And so I think when you look at these levels, most definitely risk management makes some good sense, particularly when we talk about it's all about what do you think the disease factor really is. Remember, the government in the last report, we'll see what they say in the report on Monday, but they had the high for the summer hogs around 89 to 90, so there's a big difference.
Big difference. All right. Well, thank you so much, Don. Appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
That wraps up this edition of Market to Market. But Don and I will continue our discussion and answer some of your questions in our Market Plus segment online. You'll also find audio podcasts and streaming video of our program, as well as links to our Twitter feed and Facebook account exclusively at the Market to Market website. And be sure to join us next week when we'll further examine the impact of persistent drought in California. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content.